All right, let's start with Moldova. It has chosen split between a retreat to its past identity and its future. Voters have given the mandate to PAS, the pro-EU party, and have snubbed any Russian slant. With majority of counting complete, the Party of Action and Solidarity has secured 50.2% of the vote share. On the other hand, its political rival and pro-Russia party, the Patriotic Bloc, secured 24.2% of the vote share. The PS thanked Moldovans for a resounding victory, which cements the country's bid to join the European Union bloc and further distance itself from Russia.
We thank you, dear people. Moldova, a country that was tormented for decades, a country unknown, yet it astounded the entire world. And we taught the most important lesson in democracy, that even an aggressor like Russia can be defeated if you fight the strongest thing a country has, with the help of its people. When the state and citizens defend their country, everyone wins. I thank all citizens for defending their country by voting.
The win for PAS has come as a surprise to many, as the party, along with other European stakeholders, accused Russia of meddling in Moldova's elections. While the Kremlin denied the claim, it has now counter-accused Moldova's authorities of preventing thousands of Moldovans in Russia from voting in Sunday's election.
Based on what we see and what we know, we can state that hundreds of thousands of Moldovans were deprived of the opportunity to vote in the Russian Federation, as only 2 polling stations were open for them. Naturally, it was insufficient and did not allow everyone who wanted to vote the chance to do so. That much we can say with certainty.
Now, Moldova's history as a former Soviet Union state and its proximity to Russia has long created a deep divide in its society, where the country's cumulative identity. Moldova is eyeing EU accession by 2030, with the PAS as a majority party in parliament. European Union membership appears closer. But can it stay completely out of Russia's orbit with pro-Russia parties in strong opposition? That, of course, remains the big question. Now, following a decisive win for Moldova's pro-EU party, citizens react to the election mandate. Let's listen to this.
We breathed a sigh of relief. After a long campaign in Romania, and here, which was more complicated than ever, we can finally breathe freely. And I believe that with the help of the current Moldovan government, Moldova will join the European Union with full rights.
Why aren't EU rules respected over here? No one allows such bad things to happen in the EU, but here it was allowed, and that same Europe keeps silent and accuses Russia of meddling. Prove this meddling.
Russia is not doing a lot of good things. It's really bad, and from my parents' experience that lived with Russia when they were little, and my grandma and my grandpa, as I've heard, it's not good with them, and I want to go with Europe because I have a lot of family that is in Germany, Italy, Czechia, and their life is good.
No, there was no rigging, absolutely not. This has been checked so much, it's been talked about so much, no one would have risked rigging it, no one. So the vote was very democratic and beautiful. I'm glad that our Moldova will become a member of the European Union.
Now we have with us Anne-Elizabeth Moutet. She is a columnist who specializes in international affairs. She's joining us live from Paris. Thank you so much for joining us on Race to Power.
Here.
Now, of course, let's get right into this. There was, of course, a lot of talk about Russian interference in these elections. There was also a perceived shift towards pro-Russia parties. That being said, the results are out. What is your take on what's happened?
My take on what's happened is that the Moldovans did realize that Russia was trying to influence the elections. One of the candidates in the previous election, this is a rerun of the election because there had been so much strange activity. that eventually the election was called again. The candidate who was the pro-Russian candidate was found to have $10 million in cash under his floor in his home and an armory of weapons. It was very obvious that this was something that it should not be the experience of democratic politics. So the election was called again. Russia attacked Moldova in speech you've just mentioned and shown Dmitry Peskov, who's the spokesman of the Kremlin, explaining exactly what they've done to say that that was the opposite, that it was done to them. That's what Russia does. It commits sabotage and then it says that it is being sabotaged and that Moldova is interfering in Russian affairs. That is a typical Russian playbook. Moldovans remember very well, you saw that young man who was not alive when it was a Soviet nation, and still he had family and national remembrance of what it was like to be ruled by the Russians. As the lady, Mrs. I think Simeonescu, who was speaking, when she also said something that was very important, she said the election right now is so much watched that it's impossible to rig it, and therefore I respect the result that we have now. Russia has interfered in many places. We know that it's interfering with bombs in Ukraine. We know that it has interfered in elections. It tried to interfere in elections in Romania. It is trying a hybrid approach to reconquering what it views as being its own space ever since the Soviet Union was disbanded.
Now, Ms. Muted, of course, with this emphatic win for the pro-EU party, what does this also say about the aspirations of the Moldovan people, and what are the challenges that remain ahead? Because as I mentioned earlier, that of course there are pro-Russian parties in strong opposition as well. So what do you have to say about that?
What Moldovans want, they want to join the EU. They have seen what happens when Eastern European countries, former Warsaw Pact members, join the EU, and there's a bitter pill at the beginning because the country has to become competitive, but at the same time, the access to the freedoms of the European Union and the economic freedoms of the European Union mean that those nations develop very well. If you look at Poland, which joined the European Union in 2004. We're now talking about 21 years. In 21 years, it has become a powerhouse, an economic powerhouse. It has become a military powerhouse. And that was not something that could be predicted. If you go back in the past, you can see that when in the 80s, Spain and Portugal, which were somnolent under dictators, eventually managed to join the European Union. The economic development was huge, and therefore, when that young man says there's a good life in the European Union, we Europeans, I'm French, we complain, but it is very obvious that Europe is a beacon of democratic freedom and economic success to a country like Moldova.
All right, Ms. Muted, thank you so much for joining us on WION World as One with your insights on this. For latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.